Chengli and the Silk Road Caravan by Hildy Kang. Chapter 4. Chengli dragged himself away from the crowd of workers, found his camel, and shoved himself up tight against El Khalid's rough side, willing himself invisible. His thoughts circled. I'm a dead man. I meant to help. I thought she was a servant. I never meant to touch the princess. He looked downhill. The princess was out of sight. He looked uphill. The soldiers were all bent over their work on the broken cart. He left the safety of El Khalid's side and worked his way downhill until he came to Master Fong. Illustrious master, I am truly a useless camel boy, he said, looking up into Master Fong's face, gruff and dark. Quickly he looked back down at the ground. Please, master, hide me. The princess has ordered my head chopped off. You said we would rest this week here in the Lanzhou Caravan. Let me stay in the courtyard and guard the loads. I'll stay inside the walls all week. I'll never go near the princess again. The Caravan, like other caravan inn along the route, offered protection from wild animals and thieving humans. Four walls surrounded an inner courtyard where packs and animals could be stored with safety. Along with each side, built into the walls, were open alcoves offering shelter to the men. Large cities often had 10 or even 100 inns on their outskirts. Here in Lanzhou, the men said there were 50, and the merchants divided their caravans among them. The princess, Chengli knew, would have her very own inn, keeping her away from the smells and dirt of the men, pack, and animals. Get up, Master Fong ordered. Yes, you may hide all week if that's what you wish. There is always work to be done inside the Caravan. But put away your fear. She cannot order the loss of your head. She may think she has that power, but at her age it is only in thought, not reality. You are quite safe. The master turned away, but swung back to face Chengli. Speaking of your head, why is your hair falling free and messy? Why is it not tied in a proper knot at the back of your head? Chengli mumbled an answer. Speak up, boy, thundered Master Fong. When I ask you, answer. Chengli winced and spoke as fast as he could. I got nits in my hair, and old cook cut it all off. Master reached out and yanked at the strands of Changli's black, unruly hair. It's long now, he laughed. Go get a strip of cloth and tie it up properly. Chengli grabbed the nearest rag and tied up his hair in an untidy version of the common top knot. He then sat down to consider the Caravan. He looked up at the high stone walls of the inn's courtyard and found that just looking at them made him feel safe and far removed from the princess. He walked over to Abdul and Bori and began to unload the packs. Abdul pointed to Changli's tightly knotted hair and grinned his approval. During the week, the men divided the work. Some cared for the animals outside the walls of Lanzhou. Some protected the loads stacked against the many Caravansaries scattered across the city. Others took off time to explore the huge city and visit the bazaar, buying supplies, eating fresh fruit, and laughing at the acrobats who performed on many street corners. One day midweek, Fourth Brother appeared in the gateway. Ho, skinny one, are you there? He yelled, I've got news and food. Which do you want first? Chengli poked his head out of the small alcove. Come on in and start with the food. I've been to the bazaar and I got this savory flatbread covered with onions and garlic. He held out a huge disk of hard bread for Chengli to get a whiff of the aroma. Chengli grabbed the flat disk, tore off a part, and munched happily. And, Fourth Brother continued, I have news about the princess. Chengli choked and spit the bread across the yard. I don't want to hear anything about her. He brushed a fly off the loaf as if wiping the princess out of his life. Yes, you do. I saw her two young servants. Those two from India. They were also at the bazaar. And Sudarashana said to tell you that the princess seems to be her regular self again. She's still grumbling, but now it's because she is bored. She is tired of the cramped courtyard where she is being kept for safety. She misses the road. Can you believe it? He laughed and punched at Chengli. Even traveling with us is better than sitting still. Chengli groaned and put his head down on his knees. He forgot about the flat bread in his lap and onion and garlic smeared all over his face. What should I do? If you ask me, just pretend nothing ever happened. Easy for you to say, Chengli said, wiping his face with his sleeve. No one ordered your head chopped off. At the end of the week, word came to load up and move on. The long string of camels complained and with grunts and groans as their handlers shouted and prodded them into action. They headed out of the city to the northwest, gawked at Mr. Zhu's famous water wheels, and moved into the corridor where the land slowly changed. On their left loomed mountains so high that the snow never melted. A place called Tibet was up there somewhere, Bori said. On the right, farmers' fields gave way to hot, dry plains, and finally to gray-brown stone. In this harsh land, rivers shriveled to creeks. Creeks dried into puddles, and even the puddles disappeared. Chengli grinned. It felt good to be on the move again. The sun beamed dry and warm, the load stayed in place, and even the animals seemed to walk with a bounce in their step. Chengli took off the woolen blanket he wore wrapped around his shoulders for warmth and threw it up over the pack on El Qaid's back. The princess grumbled less, but brother grumbled more. Chengli watched him slap at the donkeys. "What's going on? You usually the happy one," Chengli called out. "I asked Master when I could work with the guards. We are going out into wild territory now. We need more guards. All he said was that I could be one of the night crew." "Night crew? Staying awake all night and banging on pots and pans just to let night raiders know I'm awake and watching?" Fourth brother slapped at the donkey. "Pots and pans, ha! In Chang'an, Master said that I could learn to use the bow and arrows and maybe even the whip chain." His eyes narrowed and he kicked at the stones underfoot. "He promised." Fourth brother continued to sulk along, now in silence. Chengli walked along and watched his friend. His anger is different from mine, Chengli thought. I yell and holler and then I'm over it. Fourth brother holds his anger in and just complains as it grows. What will he do when he can't hold it in any longer? With no answer, Chengli turned his attention back to the camels. The days marched along one after the other, and although it was still spring, it felt more and more like summer. Chengli liked best the days when they passed the mud-walled, high-gated garrison towns like Wuyi and Zhanghe, both busy with soldiers inside and out protecting the emperor's territory. Along this corridor, hemmed in by mountains on the one side and desert on the other, the soldiers raised thousands of horses for the emperor. Sometimes Chengli saw the horses galloping free in the distance. Other times he saw soldiers practicing with bows and arrows, crossbows, or even fire arrows. One of the fire arrow shooting soldiers called out a warning. "Take care," he said. "The road grows more dangerous. Set your guards out both day and night." "So are you worried, skinny one?" Chengli looked up to see four Buddhist monks ambling along together, slowly letting the caravan pass them by until they had dropped behind to walk with him. "We heard about your excitement with the princess last week," the young monk said. "Quite a story." Fourth brother tied the rope of his lead donkey to the back of Chengli's end camel and sauntered up to join the monks. "How far are you going?" he asked them. "Your packs are awfully small." He pointed to the blanket rolls that each monk carried on his back. "We go to the end of the Great Wall, to the town of Dunhang." "Dunhang?" Fourth brother asked. "That's a checkpoint where they inspect loads and collect taxes. But you have no load." "We are headed to a wondrous place outside the town," the young monk answered. "There is a steep ravine cut by an ancient river where a whole row of temples honoring Buddha has been hollowed out in the face of a cliff. We are going there to work on a new cave temple." "We'll paint the walls," the old monk said. We've planned a picture to show what life is like today. The houses, the fields, even the caravans. I'll paint you, your camels, your donkeys," he said to fourth brother. "Even your brown hat will be in my painting." "I plan to paint another wall with the picture of the Buddha, and then surround him with pictures of all the stories he told," said a chubby monk. "That way people who cannot read will see and understand." Suddenly, Dakshish's voice, with its lilting Indian accent, broke into their quiet conversation. "Our princess gives an order," called Dakshish as he ran forward to join them, his short brown tunic flapping against his leg. "Princess has been watching from behind the window of her cart. She has never seen all of you talking together like this, and she wants to know what you talk about." "Princess Mei Ling," Sudarshana added, running up to join her brother, "orders us to take her your news." The servant girl fell into step beside Cheng Li. "Well, there is a bit of news," the young monk said, "but we haven't even mentioned it yet. If we keep going at this pace, we should arrive in the city of Duhang around the 5th day of the 5th month. Every year on that day, the king of the city invites the people out to Crescent Lake, a spot where the gravel desert disappears into the great sand dunes of the Takalakmakan Desert. There, the king provides all the people an entire day of feasting, games, and climbing on the huge sand mountains. There can't be a lake in the sand dunes, exclaimed Sudarshana. Ah, but wait until you see it, said the young monk. Perhaps it is magic, for the dunes are huge and they rise all around the little lake. Yet they never cover it. It has been that way since time began. But I'm afraid of the sand, said Chengli. People say the sand goes on, and it all looks the same, and people get lost and die there. Not the dunes by Crescent Lake, replied the monk, and that is why the king holds the festival there. People do not cross over the dunes into the endless desert, but climb instead to the top of the nearest ones and then slide down. They climb up for the joy of sliding down, just as people who live in the snow feel joy when sliding down their snow-covered hills. None of us has ever lived in the snow, said Dakshish. We've never slid anywhere except in rain puddles. And in mud, grumbled Chengli reluctantly, remembering his run-in with the princess. People attend the festival to become like children again, sliding down the huge sand mountains and watching the acrobats, dancers, and musicians. People talk about it all year, the monk continued. Oh, what fun that would be, to play instead of work. Chengli threw his wide straw hat into the air, reached out and grabbed Akshish's belt, pulling him around in a wild circle and yelling at the top of his lungs. What are you doing? Laughed Fourth Brother as he tripped over his own feet to join the chase. We don't live in Duhang, so the party's not for us. The monks joined arms and circled around Akshish. Well, those who do go can all pretend to be children again for that one day. That's the fun of it. A shrill call cut through the laughter. Come here to me this minute. The voice of the princess froze their actions and ended their playfulness. Dakshish and Shudarshana turned and scurried around the royal soldiers to walk beside the cart and tell the princess this latest news. Fourth Brother dashed back to his donkeys, and Chengli turned toward his camels. Skinny one, the princess's voice filled the silence. You, the skinny one, do not turn away. Come here to me. Chengli looked at Fourth Brother in desperation. Help me, he whispered. I can't go there. Attend my cart, called the princess to Chengli. Chengli looked at the monks. They turned away. He looked at the soldiers. They turned away. He grabbed at his hat, pulled it down so tight it scratched his forehead, and walked back to stand beside the royal cart. I've got to be careful, he thought. She's young, but she rules over me. She is royalty. I am nobody. He stared at the ground, hoping to show respect. Camel boy, you must do as I ask. You are in no position to disobey my wishes, came the voice from behind the silk curtain. I heard what the monk said, and I want to go to the party. I want to play on the sand dunes. Princess, I work for Master Feng. I cannot play. I must care for his animals, Chengli replied. He can do without you for one day, the princess stated shrilly. Princess, truly I cannot help you, Chengli repeated. He stared at the ground and tried to think, but all he could come up with was, Master Feng will fire me. The princess will hate me. The monks cannot help me. He looked at Sudarshana. She looked at the ground. He scrunched his eyes shut and forced his thoughts to calm. You, the voice behind became harsh with power, you will get me invited to the celebration. But do it. I can't, Chengli groaned. I am nobody. Ask. The silk curtain closed.